Alright, well, welcome back to Lucore Automotive. It's been exactly 1 week since the purchase of this gorgeous, large engine charge 1994 Volvo 940 wagon. What we're going to do for you today is a pre-purchase, post-purchase inspection. Typically speaking, a lot of times when customers are going to be buying a used car, it's a good idea to get a pre-purchase inspection. And by that we mean bring it in, let us put it up on the rack, and see if you're going to buy yourself a lemon. In this case, I skipped all those steps, and I bought it, and hopefully you saw in episode 1, just got it and drove it back to Columbus. It's got about 370 miles on it since I bought it. Still on 1 tank of gas, which means I'm not pouring fuel out the tailpipe, which is good. I will be very honest with you, I haven't touched a thing on this car other than washing it. Oh, and I removed some hippie stickers off the back. So Rich and I are going to put this thing up in the air and see if I bought myself a big headache that I'm going to put a whole bunch of money into, or if I got lucky and bought a tank. Before this gets started, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Click on the like button because you're going to like this anyway. It's an old Volvo. Oh, let's get started. Yeah.
Tie rod end? Oh yeah, tie rod end. That's a bad tie rod end.
So, this customer was told that the front steering components were all replaced, which it shows on the ad is replaced. And if you can see, this rust matches this rust, which means it's the same age. So, outer tie rod ends, not replaced. Yeah.
To replace that new tie rod end.
Yeah. So the old rusty brand new tie rod end is bad. Look on this side.
It might have had a ball joint put in over here a couple years ago.
According to Monroe Muffler.
But there's no grease in it, so the boot dry rotted.
Yeah. According to Monroe Muffler, they replaced the ball joint on this side. I have a receipt for that. Maybe I could take it back to Monroe Muffler and get it replaced. Hey Monroe!
Brake pads were replaced. Nothing was done to the rotors. Pad slap.
Pad slap.
Pad slap city. Nice dry rotted tires.
Yep. Yep. That was why I bought new wheels and tires before I left Indiana. The one on the other side is even worse. It's literally cracked the whole way around. I walked up to it and I'm like, this ain't gonna work. It'll make a 300 mile journey, no big deal. Yeah, this is perfect. We're gonna cool it right here. Just take this piece out. Intercooler's not considered modification, right?
No,
it's extra cooling. That's like
it's already intercooled.
Bulletproofing your Volvo.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's not modifying. It's adding reliability.
For a 200,000 mile car, it's not in too bad a shape.
Right?
The welding on the exhaust, they had it full of pinholes, so they put muffler goop on it, and it still leaks.
All right, so for all you beginning exhaust folk, if you're going to go to exhaust repairman school, this is not how you fix exhaust or how you do welding. This is essentially like concrete.
Actually, that's pretty common, unfortunately, these days.
It is. But this is not how this is supposed to work. All right, so there. So I mentioned before the exhaust drone in the cabin, and this is exactly what I mean. Factory, this exhaust actually sits kind of more over this way, more here. And then these had an interesting little S-turn that came out back here. Well, instead of doing that, they just kind of cobbled together a bunch of new stuff. Now, this is probably Walker, which is good stuff, but they probably didn't make a kit specifically for this car. So the exhaust technician that made this took some artistic liberties with how this works. And it doesn't work. So that's going to have to go away. So it goes to a 2-inch to a 1 3/4.
It goes big to small to
Really small?
to smaller to choke down
To squished. To
to a wrinkle bend.
a wrinkle bend. To goobered. This is not how you do exhaust. Alright, so enough complaining about the exhaust. Let's just say that sucks and needs to be replaced. And there's also an exhaust hanger here that doesn't have anywhere to attach to. It's not actually doing anything.
Usually those are tight.
No, come on now. They're
That
self-adjusting.
one's- That
That's
one
how
has
they're-
actually been replaced fairly recently. That one not so much. So they must have done the ball joint and the tire out end at the same time, but then they didn't grease it. There's no grease in it. Like
No,
none.
sir.
It needs grease, guys. That poor boot's destroyed because it's got no grease in it. It's got new brake pads, old rotors.
Mm-hmm.
Loose tie rod end over here. This guy was completely loose. This guy's loose. You can see play in the tie rod end. I can't really feel the ball joint, but this strut's all whacked out too. Not too bad. There's not a lot of rust. I don't have oil dripping in my hair. Not any signs of coolant leaks. It's got new exhaust, although the welds leave a little bit to be desired. But that's okay. That part of the not modifying this car will be changing the exhaust.
Reliability.
Pinch welds all look good except for where somebody jacked it up with a floor jack on the pinch weld. But the pans and the pinch welds, except for where it was improperly jacked. See, it has these really nice jack points. But when you jack up a car by the pinch weld, it folds the pinch welds over. Yeah. Got a trailer hitch.
It's got a tow package.
Nice.
It's got the heavy duty transmission tow package.
Nice. 4-wheel disc brakes. New brake pads on the back. Looks like they put new rotors on the back. Rear shocks have been replaced at least once. Alternator's been changed. Yeah, not bad. It'll do.
For $2,500?
It'll do. It'll do just fine. I don't think your oil leak's even anything that major. Maybe a valve cover.
Yeah, it was a little greasy up top, maybe.
That wouldn't surprise me. I spent at least a minute and a half looking under the hood of this car before I bought it.
Did it make it here? It runs?
Pretty
Okay,
much.
see ya.
Needs a little suspension work. Not too bad.
Yeah, so I didn't film any of the test drive stuff on this car. And typically speaking, if you looked in the first episode of, I guess we would call it episodes, but the first video of this thing, which if you haven't, I'll link it to it. We had some complications with this car meeting me. Once it finally arrived, I verified it was a Volvo, that it was running. I drove it about 4 miles. I handed the guy cash and I drove away with it. These cars are not easy to find, which is really weird because you wouldn't think these are anything anybody would actually want. But the 240, 740, and 940 wagons are actually really hard to find, especially in a turbo. So I wasn't really in the mood to haggle about it. I knew I had a good enough car, just from what I could see, that I wasn't going to be upset about it. there's certainly some parts that we needed to replace, and I knew that when I bought it. Again, the person that I bought it from had receipts from a repair facility that said certain things were done. As a car person, if you roll up underneath it, you can tell the fact that rust matches rust. Probably hasn't been done. So, you know, it is what it is. I paid him what he asked for it. Did I overpay for the car? Maybe a little bit. But I got what I wanted, and it's going to give me a good base for what I want to do. Now, I did promise in the first video that I wasn't going to modify this, and I'm pretty much going to stick to that. But there are some things that need to be replaced for safety and reliability. So for safety and reliability, we need to replace the front tie rod ends, which we have a set of front tie rod ends here. So tie rod ends are going to be replaced, very specifically the one that is not tight in any way. That one will be replaced. We'll replace them as well. The struts are a challenge on this car, namely stating that nobody sells a complete strut assembly. Now, can we rebuild these struts? Absolutely. They are a cartridge system, and you can rebuild those struts and replace them with a strut cartridge. Or we could figure out an aftermarket suspension solution. We'll leave that one for a later video as we make decisions. Oil change needs to be done. Haven't done that. Actually didn't even check the oil before I drove it home. Seems like it's fine. But we'll pull the oil out. We'll flush coolant. We'll recharge the AC. But generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with what I got. As far as a pre-purchase, post-purchase inspection, I didn't get completely hosed, and I'm happy about that. Also, these sexy for 1994 Volvo hubcap wheels are not the best. So, as I was driving, no, I wasn't doing this while I was driving. When I was sitting still, I found a set of Volvo S60 wheels, a 2006 Volvo S60, at a salvage part slinger in Columbus. Sent said person a text message, and we negotiated as I was sitting on the side of the road, and we picked up a set of those. So, now, again, not modifying it, we're leaving it alone, but these tires are not safe. They're dry rotted and terrible. Also, they're only 195 millimeters wide. What I have picked up is a set of wider wheels and tires. Tie rod's out. Now, this is tricky. This is the last generation of the rear-wheel drive, true rear-wheel drive Volvos. After this, they were mostly front-wheel drive / all-wheel drive. The offset is completely different on the rear-wheel drive Volvos versus the front-wheel drive Volvos. So in order to be able to run the wheels for the later generation of Volvos, you have to get a wheel adapter. That is not yet here. So we're going to show you that once those show up. This is not going badly. Speaks dolphin.
Goodbye, and thanks for all the fish.
Jam nut has been removed. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear this or not, but it is sizzling. in the chemicals it's sitting in. AKA, don't touch it. So what we see here is the state of our alignment. Now, we just replaced the tie rod end on the right front corner. So, toe on the right front corner should be off. However, this car was recently aligned, and as you can see, every single toe on the car is wrong. Which will A, decrease my fuel economy, B, make this thing act bad on the highway, C, eat up some tires. Oh, and it's not safe.
It's not safe.
We've got to upgrade that for safety. So Rich is going to make it all green. So the oil's good. Knew I didn't need to check that before I drove all the way home. And the cruise control, which is here, which is vacuum operated, as we mentioned in the previous episode, it's probably a vacuum leak. Well, in this case, it's not exactly a vacuum leak, it's missing a vacuum hose. So, it doesn't work. That's going to be tough. I have to attach a vacuum line. A little bit of an oil leak from the valve cover gasket. Interstate battery, that's nice. And it's still under warranty too, so if I need to replace that, that's cool. Timing belt hasn't been done for 60,000 miles in 2005, which is 13 years ago, and you need a new one for safety. Yeah, 13 years ago and 60,000 miles ago. So we may need to do a timing belt in the semi-near future. Now the good news is, for safety, I can get that timing belt replaced, and while I'm there, I can go ahead and replace the camshaft and get an adjustable cam gear. You know, while I'm there, I might as well do it just for reliability purposes. We also discovered when we were dialing in the alignment, this is a zero camber car, meaning the tires stay standing straight up and down, which is how things were done in the 90s and the olden days. Modern cars have a little bit of a negative camber. Helps with stability and turning. So for safety purposes, we are probably going to need to upgrade the front suspension to something that will allow us to have some more negative camber. So we're going to need to look into something for that.
Found it. There it is. Hello. I've been looking for you. Kisses.
Okay, so
Cruise fixed.
Cruise control's fixed.
Probably.
Maybe. That also could have been a reason maybe it was disconnected.
We'll find out.
Maybe you'll hit the cruise and it'll just go, "Wah!"
All right, so now that the safety stuff has been taken care of as far as the alignment goes, the tie rod ends are finished. Basic alignment is done. We've got toe set back to 0. The camber is at 0. Caster is terrible, but it's what it is, what it was in the 90s. So now it's time to continue working on some of the safety situations with this car and making it comfortable and safe for me. So, as you can see, there's a whole lot of glass in this car, and obviously I have to wear sunglasses a lot because it's sunny outside and I have these beautiful blue eyes. So, for safety purposes, we need to put some tint on this thing. So, we are with our friends over here at Liquid Vision, just down the street from us. And Liquid Vision Auto Detailing, they've tinted a lot of vehicles for us. They've done quite a few things that you've seen on video and a lot of things you haven't. But we will be featuring them in some other stuff that's coming up. So we are down here with these guys. Liquid Vision Auto Detailing does a great job. Jesse and Mike do a wonderful job, not just detailing, as you saw with the 53 Chevy. If you haven't seen that, that's the link for it. You're going to want to see it. But they do a great job on custom tint stuff. So they're going to tint the wagon to protect these beautiful blue eyes. And I'll show you guys once it's done what it looks like. Well, back over at Liquid Vision Detailing. Mike and Jesse did a fantastic job on the Volvo wagon, and I have my keys back. As you can see, I'm not wearing my glasses to protect my beautiful blue eyes because A, it's cloudy, because it's Ohio. This year apparently it's always going to be cloudy, and B, wagon's got tint, baby. Oh yeah. Super happy with how this turned out. Got all of this crazy amount of glass that's on this thing tinted out. Look at that. How sexy is that? Yeah! Thanks once again to Jesse and Mike at Liquid Vision Detailing for getting this done. There's a whole lot of glass that's on this thing, and Mike worked his butt off to get this done for me. I really appreciate that. If you guys need any tint work done, these guys are some of the best in the business around this area. So Volvo is now done. Safety-wise, we've got safety for my eyes now, so I don't have to worry about that. And now we're going to take her back to the shop and do some wheels and tires, because these rears, well, pretty much all of these tires are super not safe. When we talk about dry rot, let me show you what I'm talking about. If you can see, that's cracked all the way around the tire. I mean, it's like this on all four of them. Not safe. Drove it back on those. Really don't want to try to drive much more on them. So we're gonna run down the street here and get this guy back to our shop and get the wheels and tires swapped out, and then on to the dyno over at CIA Performance in Columbus, right off of Westerville Road, to see what this monster 2.3 turbo puts down in stock, non-modified form with 182,000 miles on it. We'll see. Voila! Newly tinted Volvo wagon. Looking fly. Alright, so time to upgrade for safety purposes. Wheels and tires. We have a set of 2006 S60 Volvo wheels and tires. These guys right here that we got from a local junkyard, which is awesome. So, brand new, basically brand new tires on a set of slightly used Volvo wheels. But for 200 bucks, I'll take it. It's less expensive than I would have had a set of tires on these 15s anyway. As we said before, we've got to we're running a totally different offset, so we're going to have to use wheel adapt. H&R, the same company that makes your lowering springs, makes wheel adapters to be able to run wide wheels and tires on these guys. It actually is a 25 millimeter adapter that bolts just like a wheel would to your wheel hub. And then it's got another set of studs that are on there, which these wheels will bolt to. So it kicks my wheel out, fixes my offset that I have for my rear wheel drive car running front wheel drive wheels, and that'll get us back in business. So we're going to take this guy up in the air, put it on the auxiliary jacks, and knock these wheels off, start this process. We'll show you how this goes as we go through it. So this is a relatively minor surgery. We're not doing anything crazy here, but this is the adapter that comes from H&R. Excellent little piece of machinery. It's all billet aluminum, and as you can see, it comes with their studs already pressed into the hub. So these guys sit on those wheel hubs as I explained, and then these guys will come through just like your normal lug studs would on the wheel, and then you run your lug nuts down, ready to rock and roll. Here we have our factory 15, obviously with our hubcap taken off, so it doesn't have that on there. But these are just factory 15-inch wheels. So this is the old guy, this is the new guy. It's a 16, slightly taller, slightly more tire. So this is a 215/55/16, slightly bigger wheel, slightly smaller sidewall, slightly wider tire. All in all, not a huge difference, but slightly more tire, slightly better grip, and not nearly as dry rotted. which is good. Like I said, for safety.
So, as a whole, we hate wheel spacers. Just gonna put that out there. But in this case, it's the only way around this to make a solution. When you install a wheel spacer, you need to make sure that your surface that you're going to be fixing it to is nice and clean. Back is clean. If there's any retaining clips from the assembly line, they need to be removed from the studs. If there's anything that makes this not flat, it needs to be removed. Everything's on there, it's going to lock down good, but these lug nut studs protrude through this face. Luckily for us, the back side of the wheel has recesses that those studs will sit in, so we don't have to machine the tops of the wheel studs down to be flush. And our lug nuts sit flush and they don't protrude through the wheel spacer. So that's good, it's less work for us. We don't have to make sure that everything's flush with the top of this. I actually did have a car come in here that we had to do that with. It's a little scary seeing that the wheel sticking that far off being held onto the wheel studs. Thunderbird, if I remember correctly. So with your wheel surface clean, you install your wheel spacer. This one is actually pretty well hub centric. It fits pretty good. You always want your cone seat for your lug nut in. Install all of your lug nuts, torque them to specification, and then you will install your wheel, torque your lug nuts to specification. Then you'll drive it 20 miles, you'll bring it back, take your wheel off, and you'll re-torque these lug nuts to specification again. Because if you don't, the thing will come loose and your wheel will leave your car and you'll wave at it as it passes you by on the freeway. Have fun.
Wire brush. Clean off rust. As Rich was saying, we want to make sure this mating surface is as clean as possible. The last thing we need to do is leave a chunk of rust on here, so when that thing is sitting up against this hub, if it breaks that piece of rust loose, it gives it one chance to move. It moves, and it keeps moving, and shucking and jiving, and eventually, it's going to shuck and jive your wheel off. Don't do that.
Shucking and jiving.
Shucking and jiving. Ooh, yeah. Nice and smooth. So there we go. Already did that side. This side's nice and clean. Move on to the rears. John is mounting the adapter on the other side while I get this side cleaned off. We'll show you what we're doing on this side. So one thing to take note of on the older Volvos, these do come with a centering pin, which lines up on the wheel itself, on the old wheels. These centering pins sit inside one of these little divots here, and they screw in. So this centering pin is not used on the new wheels, so these do need to come out. This is what, like an 8mm?
10mm.
These pieces come out simple. They're just threaded on the back side. It's just a pin on the front, and you run a 10mm socket down on it, spin it back out. Life is good. Torque wrench, set to 100 foot-pounds. Torque all these guys down, essentially like you're installing two sets of wheels. So you put these guys on, torque them all down as if they were a wheel, then you put your wheels on with your new lug nuts on, torque all those things down, we're ready to rock and roll.
You need that to put in the wedge in the lug nuts.
You want
keep the wheel from
hang this guy, or hold this guy while I... Don will be the assistant doctor on this mission. See if I can not hit you in the face. Interesting side note, 19mm impact socket does not fit into hole. So you need to have a thinner wall, 19mm. Fits like butter. We had to swap torque wrenches. We had a little bit of a torque wrench malfunction. So this guy's an audible torque wrench, and it will go it'll do that when it's hit the number. So there you go. 100 foot-pounds. Do that on all four wheels. This new kit from H&R comes with low profile lug nuts. Spin right down on there, no big deal, and they're pretty. Now the nice thing is on this case, we used some stock size low profile nuts anyway on these wheels. So we used the ugly old guys on the inside of the adapter. We used the nice new shiny ones on the outside. So everything's nice and pretty. Last thing you want to do here is cross thread these things. So put them on by hand. Here's our product, H&R Lowering Springs Track Plus. Excellent product. As you can see, not a complicated installation and gorgeous looking fitment. Totally upgrades the look of this vehicle. I think we're going to be super happy with it. Now it's time to torque down the lug nuts on the outside of the wheel. Once we've dropped the weight of the car back down on it by taking out the auxiliary jacks, you can torque those guys down, make sure everything's good to go, take it for a drive, and go through this whole process again. As Rich noted earlier, there is a process to this. You don't just put this all together, torque it all down, and say it's good to go. You have to put this all together, drive it around a little bit, let everything shake and rattle and roll, make sure everything is good. Then you pull it all back off, check your torques one more time, and then put it together for a final time. So we're going to take this guy for a little bit of a test drive, put 10, 15, 20 miles on it, bring it back, check all of our torques, and then we can call this thing a day. So Don's torquing down our last lug nuts here. On the outside, again, we're going to put these all to 100 foot-pounds. Inside lug nuts, on the adapters. Outside, brand new lug studs, brand new lug nuts, all to 100 foot-pounds. Yesterday we got done with putting all of the adapters on and wheels on. Now the process that comes from H&R in the box that tells you exactly what you're supposed to do requires you to drive it for a bit, take the whole process back apart, and re-torque everything. The idea here is you're basically bolting, as I said before, this piece is essentially a wheel, and you're bolting the other wheel to the new studs. So you want to check the torque spec of these bolts as well. They do tend to loosen themselves up just a tad little bit, so this is just to make sure that everything is perfect. We're going to torque them all back down to 100 foot-pounds just as normal. And Rich is going to walk in here talking in the background like he always does, so I'm going to refilm all that. So there we go. All four adapters are torqued back down to 100 foot-pounds. Time to put the wheels back on, torque those guys back down, take it for another drive. Well, there we go. We've got the wheels and tires on. We've got the pre-purchase, post-purchase inspection completed. We've got tint on to protect these beautiful blue eyes. Most of the stuff we need to get done is done. Tie rod ends are on. A basic alignment is done. We're going to wrap this up now because this is taking a little bit longer than what I expected it to take. And we're going to push the dyno running at CIA Performance off into the next episode, which you will see here very shortly. But I don't want to make hour-long episodes because you guys don't want to see me doing a movie. So we're going to wrap this up here. Appreciate you watching this. Hopefully you've enjoyed this and seeing that I didn't get totally hosed on my Volvo purchase. Make sure you click on that subscribe button. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let us know if you think what we're doing is cool or if we're just wasting our time here. We always appreciate likes and responses back from everybody out there on the interwebs. So we'll see you next time. Next video will be coming very shortly. Dyno Tune at CI Performance. We'll see ya.